Jeff, you around here every morning, walk over to the coffee shop and I invite you to walk with me. Also, every morning, I host a show called Java with Jeff that is, it's about growth, mindsets necessary for growth. I'll just sum it up with in that way. And one of the things I've been doing regularly for probably several months now is reading James Clear's 321 Thursday email on Friday mornings. Seems kind of weird. But I host Java with Jeff at 8:30 in the morning, Eastern, and I don't get James Clear's Thursday email until in the evening. So that's just the timing of it. So that's what I do. I read through the whole email and then I ask the audience, is there anything in all of this that resonates with you that we should unpack? And so they usually pick a topic or two and we unpack it together. So today's Friday, and that's what we did again. Good morning, Nicole. Glad you're here this morning. So, yeah, you missed Java with Jeff this morning, as usual. Read through the James Clear email, and for those that aren't familiar, James Clear is the author of Atomic Habits. It's a book you should read. His email is worth subscribing to. But 321 means 3 ideas from James Clear, 2 quotes from others, and 1 question for you. So that's the format every week. 321. The third idea in this week's email is something, and I put this in a note on Substack here, but the third idea is it reads something that he read recently, I think is what it said, in a story. Somebody's wife telling him that when you're 5 years old, something happens and you can be mad for the day. When you're 10 years old, something happens and you can only be mad for an hour. And when you're 30 years old, something happens and you get 10 minutes, I think is the way it goes. And basically, the point is, as you get older, as you mature and grow, you have to develop this life skill. You have to develop this resilience. You have to develop this ability to bring yourself back. Right? When there's anger, there's some sort of emotion, something has happened. People that are emotionally mature will find a way to come back out of that, right? They'll find a way. This is not for the therapists out there. Don't hate on me for this. It's not the right way to say it, but find a way to get over it, get past it. That can mean a lot of things, of course, but a lot of techniques for that. But I think we understand this to be true. We look around. How many examples are there? Find tons of examples in sports. It's what makes the greatest the greatest. ABC Sports, when I was a kid, ABC, I think it was every Saturday morning, Wide World of Sports came on. And the intro, how did it go? The intro, this was, video of all kinds of sports competitions. From the agony of defeat to the thrill of victory, something like that. So you'd see this, whatever, probably 10, 15-second clip. You'd see like this ski jumper who crashed horrifically. All these different agony of defeat moments captured on video for us to watch in this intro to Wide World of Sports. And the point of that even was, here are all these people. Every time you watch the Olympics or the NCAA basketball tournament, there are always these stories that we chalk them up as human interest stories, but there are always these stories of people who have overcome all kinds of hardship to get to where they are, the championship or whatever, and and obviously it goes way beyond sports. People that have experienced tragedy, prisoners of war, just all kinds, on and on and on and on and on. How do we find a way to dig ourselves out of whatever it is that's bothering us? The example was being mad. It's not just about being mad. It's all sorts of versions of that. How do we get out of that? One of the things that came to my mind was, I guess it's sort of appropriate for this walk. So there's your kind of your winter postcard view, I guess. Years ago, I was going through a little bit of what do they call it for insurance purposes? This is terrible. When for the marketplace, for the health insurance marketplace in the United States, there are open enrollment periods, and the only way that you can sign up for new insurance, and all of this is just freaking bizarre. But anyway, there's open enrollment period, and the only way that you can enroll in a health plan outside of that, because apparently we want to force you to have health care, which I think is in the best interest of everybody, but then we want to restrict you from being able to get it. So there's my health insurance commentary for the moment. Anyway, the only way you can enroll for a healthcare plan outside of an open enrollment period is a major life event, I think is how they say it. So anyway, a few years ago, I was having a major life event, and somebody done something. Somebody had said something. Well, I guess it was both. It was someone had done and said something that was hurtful, was, all of these things. It felt like a personal attack. All of this. And I was on this walk. I was doing this walk. So I was over there at the time on the other side of the park. I was walking along, and I was feeling the feelings around it. And I got to the point where I realized somehow that what this person had done, they hadn't done it to me. They had done it. In fact, they had done it to themselves. And so the understanding that they didn't do it to me, they just did it, allowed me to sort of let go of some of that. And then also understanding that it wasn't my thing. It wasn't my responsibility to even deal with what they had done and the ramifications and repercussions of what they'd done. It was theirs. It was theirs to own, and deal with the ramifications and everything else. And, in the time since then, there have been, right? They got what they, I don't know. They got theirs. I'll just say it that way. But that flipping the script in that way helped. It's not easy. It doesn't make it easy at all, but it helped. Nicole says, well, crap. I've been having an issue with a friend for the past week. It started as a misunderstanding, but her reaction was extreme and beyond my boundaries. Having a hard time not being mad about it. This is hard to read in the way that it shows up on the screen. It has definitely been longer than 10 minutes. I usually get over things quickly. That it's a really good statement, right? When you're 30 years old. Nicole and I are both beyond 30 years old. I'm far beyond 30 years old. It's a great sentiment, right? As you get older, you need to be able to get past things faster. You need to develop that life skill. And also, it's easier said than done. Your therapist is never going to say, get over it. They're not going to say it that way. There are things that happen. There are circumstances that make it hard to get over, to get past it. And I think that's why the way it's written in the James Clear email. That's why it talks about it as developing a life skill. I think we have to practice it. I mentioned on Java with Jeff, improv. If you don't know improv, don't know about improv, if you've never taken improv class, improv comedy is one of my favorite forms of comedy. If you ever have the opportunity to see an improv troupe perform, take the opportunity. There was a British show that was then produced in the United States. I think Drew Carey actually was the producer of it, but whose line is it anyway? That was all improv. They got cues and they basically had to build the skit, build the story off of some cue. And so they make it up as they go. And the cardinal rule of improv is yes and. So if Nicole has started the story, Nicole has started the skit, and there's no script, by the way. It's improvisation. If Nicole has started the skit and it's my turn, it's time for her to hand it off to me, I take, whatever she has said, and I say yes and I build on her story. There's no but. There's no yeah, but, because that ends the story. Yes and gives us the ability to continue the story, to keep building on it, to keep expanding it. Like we talked about yesterday, the being stuck in places reduces our ability to think and act expansively. Talking about a similar thing here. If I can develop the skills to accept and find a way forward, that's what we're talking about. The whole bounce back is accepting and finding a way to move beyond. It's a pivot, maybe. In Java with Jeff, I told a story about baseball, which is no surprise to Nicole. I played and coached baseball for a long time. And one year I was coaching a team in the Little League playoffs. And the way it worked in our Little League was that our team that went to the tournament or would try to play into the tournament was basically an all-star team. So it's a bunch of kids off a bunch of different teams put together to the end of the season. We'd probably get a couple games in before the playoffs start. And so we were in the third game of the tournament, and which meant it was like our fifth game together. And we were playing a team that was obviously is different than ours. This is kind of a dirty little secret about Little League World Series kind of stuff, that a lot of the teams that are playing there are essentially travel teams. Yes, they're part of that Little League, but they play together all the time. They're not Little League all-star teams, generally speaking, the ones that make it. So before the game, one of our kids came into the dugout and he said, I was just talking to the first baseman or whoever it was. Like I said, this was like our 5th game together. He said, they've already played 25 games together this season. And they were bigger, faster, stronger. I mean, it was obvious. There's a big difference between their team and our team. And the second inning, we're out in the field, and their batter hit a pretty hot shot to shortstop. Pretty hot, but fairly routine. Our shortstop is probably playing deeper than he should have been. And this is not to call him out. Not at all. There's never a game where one play or one player loses the game. That doesn't happen. A lot of Ohio State. I mentioned yesterday the Big Ten championship that's usually played here in Indianapolis, Indiana University, Ohio versus Ohio State University. Ohio State may have lost on a missed field goal. They didn't lose on a missed field goal. They lost because they didn't have enough points. Sorry, they didn't have enough points at the end of the game. They lost on turnovers. They lost on defensive stops. They lost on not getting stops. All of that combined, it's a long game. So that's not the case for this player either. A hot shot too deep in the hole at shortstop. He fields it cleanly, and he comes up through to first like he's done 100 times. And he realizes that the runner, even as hot as that shot was, runner was already a step away from first base. He never even threw the ball. I could see it in his face. When that happened, he was done. He was cooked. He was completely defeated in that moment by feeling completely overwhelmed by the size and speed and strength and the talent of the other team. So I had to call the timeout, call the infield into the mound to try to bring him back mentally back into the game. They couldn't do it. We eventually, I think it's an inning or two later, we had to pull him because he was done. And he was in the Little League playoffs, so he was probably 12 years old. And he was not able to find a way to pull himself back out of that. And there was nothing that I could do or either of my assistant coaches could do to pull him, to help him pull himself back out of that. And I think that's, I love sports analogies because sports have been a big part of my life, my family for generations, actually. But I think that's a good illustration for us in life. Life happens, whether we're talking about personal or relationship or professional. Life happens. Business happens. Relationships happen. All of these things. And the question is, okay, that was one play in the game. That was one play in the tournament. What do we do next? How do we come back from that? How do we find a way to put that down? And that's, again, sports analogies. Shortstops, people that in positions that have a lot of really difficult plays over and over and over. Shortstops, third baseman, pitchers, defensive backs on the football field. When a play doesn't go their way, the best ones, you hear commentators, you hear sports broadcasters say this, the best ones, they just forget it. They move on to the next. And, there's a lot of truth in that. That's not the whole truth, but there is. They have to move on to the next because you can't let one play ruin the rest of the game or the rest of the season or whatever. And so that's maybe that's a good analogy. Maybe you're not a sports person and that doesn't resonate with you, but what's another example of somebody that faced something? Yesterday I was talking about, holy cow, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 power company trucks. What is going on? Hopefully the espresso maker has power. That's all I'm saying. Um, but yesterday, I shared the story of the millionaire dude, whoever he is. I don't even know. Still haven't gone back to find that, figure out who he is, but millionaire dude that lost all of his fortune and said that he had to let go of the idea that he was calling it a safety net. The fact that he had all this money that allowed him luxury and all the things, he was calling that a safety net. And he had to get over the idea that the safety net was gone and find a way to keep going, to keep doing the things that had gotten him there. And it's hard. I mean, I can't even really fathom, at least on that scale, at that magnitude. But we see this over and over, different examples in life. But this is what we have to do. So maybe that's something to think about. I've made it to the coffee shop. We're on a tight schedule today, so I'm going to have to wrap this up. But what do you need to do to bounce back? We're not 5 years old. We're not 10 years old. And still, none of this is easy. But it's this resilience. And I often say that our ability as humans to reflect on things is our superpower. And I think these are tied together. As we're reflecting on things, how does that help us build the resilience to move on and do the thing again? I think it's a really important question for us as we grow, as we become more emotionally mature human beings. All right. Thanks for walking with me. I'm going to go in, get a little bit warmer, get a little bit hopped up on espresso. Thanks for walking. I'll see you next time. Thanks, Nicole. See ya.